In our last improv class video, we talked about how a lot of classically trained players are intimidated or scared by improvisation. And we talked about how to play scales over chords, mostly over kind of these nebulous, floaty, cloudy things with no rhythm involved. And playing a scale over a chord, the scale is basically the notes you are allowed to use while you're playing, right? And technically, you can play any scale over any chord. You can play any note over any chord. It's just that our ears are kind of trained to expect certain things. So here's a little bit of a terminology alert. We often talk about scale degrees by using numbers, 1, 3, and 5, right? We also talk about beats of a measure using numbers. So it's possibly, there's some ambiguity when I talk about the 1. The 1 could be the root note of the scale, or it could be the first beat of the measure. I'm going to do my best in this video to use the word root when I'm talking about the first scale degree of a scale, and to say the 1 when I'm talking about the first beat of a measure or a phrase. Sometimes it can be a little ambiguous when people use the term the 1, because it could be a note, it could be a beat. Just have to use context clues sometimes, but we'll do our best to not be confusing in this video. The reason that's important right now is because the last time we were playing over these cloudy chords with no rhythm. Today we're going to talk about timing. There's a really famous video where Victor Wooten, the bass player, is talking about how when you play is more important than what you play. He's got a band grooving on a chord, and he just starts playing chromatically, but he's laying it down in time. He's like, tell me when I hit a wrong note. And because he's so deep in that groove, you really don't care if he's on a flat 9. It grooves so hard that it doesn't matter. That is a problem that classically trained players often deal with. We're so interested in which note are we going to play that we don't think much about the rhythm. And frankly, for improvising, rhythm is at least as important as which notes we play. I'm going to do some demonstrations today, and I'm going to do sort of these 1 or 2 note solos for your 1 or 2 note phrases where I'm using a really common rhythm from rock and blues and jazz. It's doo-bop. It's basically a dotted quarter followed by a staccato eighth, and we're going to hear that a lot. Now, I did say that rhythm is at least as important as the notes, and it is, but we also have to play notes. So let's think about some of those, right? We are trained, like I said, to expect to hear certain notes on certain beats. If you haven't thought about that before, it's worth thinking about. At the start of a phrase, we are kind of conditioned to hear some chord tones, some stable notes, right? So in an A major chord, we're thinking A, C sharp, E. Those are some of your chord tones. Those are the things that our ears kind of want to hear on the 1, the first beat of a phrase or a measure. Now the key word is generally. That's generally what we want to hear. There are no rules in improvising. There are only conventions. And so for beginners, it's best to follow the conventions and to learn what those conventions are, so that when you get around to breaking them, you're breaking them intentionally for an artistic purpose. So this is a major scale, right? And then this is the minor pentatonic, 1, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 7. The chord tones in that minor pentatonic scale are 1 and 5, right? So if we're thinking about doing a solo, our ears are expecting to hear a 1 or a 5 on the strong beat, the first beat of a phrase or a measure. It is totally within the norm to hear some non-diatonic notes, but we often want to hear those resolve back to a chord tone or a diatonic note. So if we're new to this improv thing, we're going to try to stay what we call inside, meaning that we're living on the notes that are diatonic to the scale that we've chosen, in this case a pentatonic scale, especially at the beginning of a measure or a phrase. Again, these are rules that you're going to break later on, But I want you to try to follow these rules now so that when you break them, you're breaking them on purpose and for a reason. Now, don't panic. If you mess up and you play a no-no note, just act like you meant to play it and then resolve to the nearest chord tone. You're never more than a half a step from a good decision. That's what a teacher told me one time. So here is a minor pentatonic scale, and then these are the rest of the notes. Your minor pentatonic scale has 5 notes, which means you got 5 legal notes and 7 illegal notes. Notice that every one of these red no-no notes is only a half a step from a diatonic note, either up or down. So I'm going to demonstrate a little bit of that. In fact, we laugh a lot in jazz, and if you play a clam, just play it again so people will think you played it on purpose. That's not all the way wrong, actually. Another trap that classical players fall into when they start doing improv is they're trying to do too much. We're trained to play these pieces that are at the edge of our technical abilities when we're doing recitals and concerts and all that, right? We want people to know how good we are. We feel like, well, if we don't show them how good we are by playing at the edge of our abilities, they're not going to know that we're good, right? And it's important that people know that we're good. Remember, you are not a very advanced improviser. You might be an advanced violinist. You're not an advanced improviser yet. You're a beginning improviser. Your improv abilities are a lot closer to Twinkle than they are to Paganini 24. So let's keep it simple. If a Twinkle kid tries to play Mozart 5, what's going to happen? It's going to be a disaster. So don't be that kid. And remember, we have this idea that things have to be complex and difficult to be valuable and to be artistically worthy. That's ridiculous. B.B. King made an entire career, and a really good one, and he is highly, highly respected by all the people who know what they're talking about. Made a great career out of playing really simple solos and living 100% in that minor pentatonic scale. It's not beneath you, I promise. One of the ways you can show your skill and your ability is with tone production and rhythmic control and expressive playing. Like Hilary Hahn recorded all of the Suzuki Volume 1 and Volume 2 stuff. When you listen to that, you're not thinking, oh, well, she's not very good. She's only playing lightly row. Her lightly row sounds amazing because she's a fantastic player. That's how you want people to know that you're good, is with your control and your expressiveness and your tone production, that not just, a bunch of squealy-dee kind of notes. The other thing I want you to think in terms of 2 to 4 note licks, right? Stay mostly diatonic, land on chord tones on the first beat of a phrase on the 1, land on chord tones on the 1, and stay in first position for a while. That's one of the other things we see with classical players. Immediately you want to start running up the neck and playing all these screechy notes. You make your money in first position, stay in first position, play 2 to 4 note phrases. We're going to try to practice this in multiple keys at different tempos and different styles. Go to YouTube and look for backing tracks and then put the word vamp, V-A-M-P. Put that in there where they're going to sit on one chord. We're not getting to the place where we're trying to get from C chords to D chords to G chords. We're not doing all that yet. We're sitting on one chord, and we're going to try to learn how to play 2 to 4 note licks that are landing in an 8th note grid. So we want each note to be purposely placed in time, and then play some rests. Rests are notes. They do not play themselves. You have to play them. Thank you, Andy Reiner. I want you to work on some of these rhythmic licks Again, 2 to 4 note phrases, staying in time, make sure you're playing on that grid, you're playing in time and in tune, diatonic to the scale that we're choosing, and generally for this kind of stuff, it's going to be either the major or minor pentatonic scale. If you're starting to feel stuck and all these things are sounding the same, remember that you've got easy access to 2 octaves of a pentatonic scale in first position on your violin. So you can go 1 octave, 2 octaves, and you can go back and forth between the octaves, right? That's an important thing to do. Vary your rhythms a lot. Rhythm is going to be more important here than note choices. We've only got 5 note choices, right, across 2 octaves. Think more about the rhythms than the notes. Again, make sure you're playing on an 1/8 note grid. These notes have to be intentionally placed. Think about how many different rhythmic patterns you can make with 2 to 4 notes using whole notes, half note, dotted quarter, quarter, eighths, and rests. The next step, Improv 103, is going to be to start thinking like a composer. We want to write a theme and do some musical exploration with that theme. Take inspiration from Beethoven's Fifth Symphony, right? Dum bum bum bum. How many different things did he do with that opening lick? That not only those notes, bum 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 bum, bum 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 bum, just move the whole thing down, bum 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 bum, bum 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 bum, bum 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 bum, bum 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 bum. And then also later using that short, 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 long. It's not just a melodic lick. There's also a rhythmic aspect to that he's using short, 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 long in other places in this composition. A very, very simple thing. He did a lot with that. Think about that. That's kind of got to be the next step, that we take some themes and give this thing some musical cohesion so that it sounds like a solo and not just a bunch of noodling. So again, this week, I want you to practice some of those 1/8 note grid patterns, 2 to 4 note licks, stay in time, stay in tune, record yourself and listen back to what you're doing. And you're going to hear stuff that you like, stuff that you don't like. Keep the meat, spit out the bones.